On here in Lasair, gonna do an update on the pine fines. So really this is most helpful if you're living in the same area as I am, because then you can see the state of your pens, and if you're all flooded and stuff, then you know how much water that we dealt with and everything. And Lasair, stop following me. I'm not doing the, we're doing pine fines right now. So that would be the most helpful. Now, I had said before that this is the new stuff this year. They took away the pine fines that I'm used to, and they replaced it with this, which they call pine fines, but I'm calling it super fine pine fines. And the difference is, I'm gonna try to see if I still have the old stuff here. I'm up against a fence. So here's my old stuff. And remember, I also have several years of this built up in here. So the old, you have to ignore the dirt, but you see how the older stuff, and I do have other videos showing the older stuff that has a better comparison than this, okay? That really shows the older stuff clearly. But basically, it's larger pieces, and that lasts a lot better and performs better than this new superfine stuff. Because the superfine stuff, these are the largest pieces, whereas the old stuff, all of it used to be more like this size pieces. Now, these are the large pieces. These are the largest pieces, and then most of the other stuff is this, and then there's a huge percentage that's just sawdust. Now, sawdust is going to be pretty much useless because that is already practically going to turn back into dirt. So I know there's so much confusion about what is this product, why is it so magical and all this stuff. And people think there's some kind of trick or something. There is no trick, guys. Let me see. All right. It's just pine wood. So you start with a tree, and then you break it down into pieces. Then you can have wood chips, big old wood chips that you usually use in walkways, because the big pieces can stand up to the abuse of walkways, right? And then you get smaller pieces and smaller pieces until you get something more like this, which is what I think they called it, playground chips. And this is what they used to put in a lot of the parks, the children's playground area. Then they'll put these type chips in there, okay? And then there's pine fines and super fine pine fines. And then there is large flake shavings, regular shavings, mini flake shavings, and then there's pellets. And pellets is just sawdust compressed into a pellet form. So once it hits with water or pee, then it expands and turns back into sawdust. And if you use it, then you know that once it's into sawdust, it doesn't last very long before it turns back into dirt, because anything organic is going to turn back into dirt. So what you want, oh, okay, back up. So then the more coarse it is, the larger pieces, it's going to be less absorbent, but more durable to abuse and the environment. And the finer the pieces, the more absorbent, but the less durable. It's going to be more absorbent, softer, nicer, but it's going to stand up to the be less durable against the environment and abuse, and the quicker it's going to turn back into dirt, because all organics is going to turn back into dirt. So, and then you have your other options like sand, DG, decomposed granite. Those are your rock products, okay? And rock products are great for drainage, but rocks will not absorb. That is fact. It won't absorb. Its purpose is for drainage. So, and then there's rubber. And the whole sole purpose of rubber is they chop up little tiny pieces of rubber and they put it into arena footing and stuff. The whole purpose of rubber is to provide shock absorption and you know, I don't know what else. It's shock absorption, and it's also another layer and stuff. But what happens is the best, if you want to design your best thing, what you want is to have lots of drainage and then something nice and fluffy and soft and cushy on top, especially if it's something for them to sleep on. Having a bed, a proper soft bed that will make it so that they won't have hawk sores and they will actually get a good night's rest and stuff like that. That is very, very important, and something that we don't really pay attention to too much, but I have seen it. And a lot of times the colic in cold weather or rainy weather, stuff like that, part of that is from the stress of having waterlogged, water-soaked hooves that can lead to infection, inflammation, not getting in any sleep, all the stress, the ulcers, colic, okay? So yeah, all of that is very important in husbandry. So what was I saying? I kind of went off. Anyways, so my favorite stuff is the playground chips, more so than the superfine pine fines. Now, if the superfine pine fines were all more of this stuff, then that'd be okay, but it isn't. It's mostly sawdust, not mostly, but a huge part of it is sawdust. And sawdust is going to break down. So I am having my doubts on how long that this will last me. It can't last me as long as the playground chips, which is lasting me. This is several years in. As far as I can deep, this is going to be several years in. You know what I mean? But what happens is when you keep layering it like this, first off, well, I don't know. Notice that it smells good. There's no, people are talking about smells and molds and stuff. No, it's not. What happens is it kind of creates this cork footing, this cork ground that is actually very nice. The whole thing is nice, and this all will absorb stuff. What you don't want is to have something that does not absorb and then piling this on top. So like putting it on top of rubber mats might not work so well, because then you're totally counting on the pine fines to do all of the absorbing, versus me, I have years of absorbing cork ground, and really, really thick, you know, piled up in there. And you can also, instead of having that, actually underneath all of the playground chips is actually DG and sand. And so it's like DG and sand and rock products, and then it's the playground chips, and then it's now the pine fines on top. Here, I'll show you. See, more of these larger chips is going to last longer than the super fine stuff, which is going to break away. And that's why shavings don't last that long. It might, even big flake shavings, they might be this large, but they're super thin. And so the thinner and smaller it is, then the more it's going to degrade back down to dirt. So this is what's nice about it. I have no mud, and it's nice and soft. Oh, you can't see my handprint now, but it's nice and soft to walk on. What I do to take care of this is I drag my rake behind me to flatten out any churned spots. So I want it nice and flat to make a nice flat. So after I pick, I'll just drag my, now if you have proper dragging tools, then use that. But just as a simple thing, just to make it nice and flat, because the churned up spots are going to be an issue. You can use things like those. Those are to drag and level, because I'll show you a churned up spot. Now this spot is right up against his kitchen, and so I don't really pay attention to this, but I will flatten this out after this video. I just want to leave it for this video because This is where it's getting to where it's more mud than it is pine fines. Mud will eat pine fines. That's why I say if you have a huge muddy area and you just put a really thin layer of pine fines on it, that's going to get eaten up by the mud. So it's not going to be effective. You need to have nice thick layer. How thick? I don't know. This was about 3 inches, and this, where I know he likes to lay and roll, that's about 6 inches. 6 inches worked great. Thicker than 6 inches, you know, once you get a load, then just like, you know, see what you would like. But 3 inches is going to be kind of nothing, and then this is even less over here, and this is starting to really turn back into mud. But all you're going to have to do is just level it out so it's not churned up, and then put your layers of pine fines over it, and then it'll be fine again. But once again, it's about, you know, a lot of people are going, oh, you know, having to walk out to feed the horses and brave all the mud, and they're miserable and I'm miserable and stuff, and then, you know, it's nice to be able to just walk out and just have this. And if you keep it nice and flat and level, then it's really easy to pick up manure. If there's all these divots and stuff, divots is going to allow puddling. It's going to allow mixing up with mud and all that stuff, and then it's not going to perform as well. So it's not, well, you'll get the best results if you stay on top of it rather than just like blah, you know. And of course, manure is organic, so if it mixes with a ton of manure, you're just gonna have a really bad mess. Anyways, hopefully I'll be able to tell you more. Oh, the other important thing, almost forgot. Okay, so the thing is, Viramontes told me that they're no longer carrying the playground chips. They only want to carry the super fine pine fines, okay? I would like to tell them that they need to bring back the playground chips because that works better. Now that there are a lot of people that are watching and using the pine fines and seeing that it does do well, you know, if you tell them as well, so that we can all go in together on this, because I just get six yards a year. So I'm nothing. But now that they got so much business from this, then that has more weight to sway them to bring back the playground chips. And they can call it something else if they want. And that way we have a bedding that still absorbs but will last longer and work better for us and not be so close to degrading. You see where I have had only 3 inches over here. You see how much darker and how much it's more degraded than the thicker area over there. And yeah, I can just make it thick, but it would just work better if it was more like the playground chips. So I'm still holding firm that the playground chips are superior to this, but this obviously does work, and it is a whole lot better than a muddy, flooded mess. All right, so there you go. I hope that helps, and thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Bye, guys.